In the last episode, we talked about something many people don't openly admit, that even when you can feel something, you can't always communicate with it. That presence doesn't always mean connection, and that silence doesn't mean nothing is there. But if that's true, then what exactly are people experiencing in places like Arrowdale Asylum or Parramatta Jail? Why do some moments feel intelligent while others feel like something repeating? Tonight, we're going to break that down, not as a fixed answer, but as a way of understanding the possibilities, because not every haunting is the same. Welcome back to Deathly Curious Australia. I'm your host, Monique, and if you've been following along, you'll know this season has taken us through some of Australia's most unsettling locations and some deeply personal experiences. But tonight, we're stepping slightly outside of a single location again to look at the patterns behind them. Because once you start noticing the differences, you can't unsee them. And if I'm being honest, I've lost count of the number of times I've walked out of a location thinking, well, I have absolutely no idea what that was. And the longer I spend in the paranormal field, the more I realise that's actually a pretty normal response. One of the biggest misconceptions in the paranormal space is that everything unexplained must be a spirit, a presence, a ghost, or something aware. That's not always the case, because sometimes what people are experiencing isn't something there. It's something that happened and it's still playing. This is what's often referred to as a residual haunting. Think of it like an imprint, an event, so emotionally charged that it leaves something behind. Not a spirit, not something aware, just a moment repeating over and over again. This can look like footsteps in the same pattern, a figure walking the same path, sounds that occur at specific times, and no matter what you do, it doesn't respond because there's nothing there to respond with. It's not interacting with you. You're simply witnessing it. Some researchers and paranormal investigators have linked this idea to what's known as phone tape theory. The theory suggests that emotionally intense events may somehow become recorded into an environment itself, almost like a memory stored within the place itself. So whether that's literally possible remains highly debated, but it offers one possible explanation for why locations such as old jails, hospitals and asylums sometimes appear to replay the same sounds, sights or experiences over and over again without any apparent awareness behind them. Not a spirit communicating, just an event echoing through time. Then there are experiences that feel very different. This is what's often described as intelligent hauntings. This is where something appears to be aware, responsive or present in the moment. This is where people report direct interaction, responses to questions, objects moving with intention, equipment reacting in real time. This is where things feel a bit more personal. And interestingly, not all of those experiences feel the same emotionally either. Some feel overwhelming, heavy or unsettling, while others feel strangely calm and emotional or even connected to grief. And this raises another question entirely. If some hauntings involve conscious presence, could emotional state affect how that presence is experienced too? But even here, communication isn't always clear. And as we've talked about in the last episode, Just because something is aware, it doesn't mean it will communicate. Then there's another category entirely, one that tends to attract some of the most dramatic stories in the paranormal world: poltergeist activity. The word itself comes from the German language, which roughly translates to noisy spirit. This is where reports often involve physical disturbances, objects moving, knocking sounds, doors opening or closing, items being thrown, and sometimes activity that appears to escalate over time. Traditionally, these events have often been attributed to spirits, but interestingly, not everyone agrees. Some researchers have suggested that certain cases may be connected to the emotional state of a living person rather than a deceased one, particularly during periods of intense stress, grief, or emotional upheaval. Others believe an external intelligence may still be involved. And the truth is, we simply don't know. What makes reported poltergeist activity so fascinating is that it sits at the intersection of psychology, environment, and the paranormal. Whatever the cause may be, it remains one of the most controversial forms of haunting reported today. Then there are experiences that don't fit neatly into either category, and this is where things get more complicated. Moments where something feels present but not responsive, where the energy shifts but nothing happens, where you feel watched but there's no interaction. This is often where people begin to question what they're experiencing, because it doesn't follow a clear pattern. It sits somewhere in between, not fully residual, not clearly intelligent, just there. There's also the role of the environment itself. Places with long histories, places where emotion has been intense, places where people have come searching for something, can carry a different kind of atmosphere. Not necessarily a spirit, but energy, layers of it, built over time. And when you walk into a space like that, you may not be encountering something external. You may be reacting to what's already embedded there. And this is where I started asking myself something else. What if some spirits don't remain connected to the place they died, but to the place that changed them? Because when you look at locations like asylums, jails, hospitals, cemeteries, sometimes the energy people describe doesn't feel connected to death itself. It feels connected to suffering, to fear, isolation, grief, punishment, or loss of identity. And maybe those emotional experiences leave something behind too, not just in the building or location, but in the person. Maybe a spirit doesn't always return to where life ended. Maybe it returns to the place where something emotionally shifted forever. The place where they felt trapped or forgotten, afraid, alone. And if that's true, it could explain why some of the most active locations aren't always places where people died, but places where they suffered. It's only a theory, but the more locations I explore, the more I find myself wondering whether hauntings are connected less to death itself and more to emotional tethering. So why do two people walk into the same place and have completely different experiences? Part of it is sensitivity. Some people naturally pick up on subtle shifts, others don't. Part of it is expectation. What you believe, what you fear, what you're focused on can shape what you notice. And part of it is timing. Because just like I mentioned in the last episode, not every moment is active. Not every location is the same every time you visit. And understanding these differences doesn't take away from the experience. If anything, it gives it context. It explains why sometimes things respond and sometimes they don't. Why some moments feel intelligent and others feel distant. Why you might feel something strongly but receive nothing in return. And why does that make your experience any less real? Personally, I don't think everything can be placed neatly into categories because real experiences don't always follow rules. But I do think understanding the possibilities helps you approach those experiences differently, with less expectation and more awareness. Because once you realize that not everything is meant to communicate, you start listening in a different way. And maybe understanding hauntings isn't just about asking what's there. Maybe it's about asking what happened there emotionally and what never truly left. The more I explore these experiences, the more I find myself wondering something even bigger. What if not every presence exists in the same way? What if consciousness itself continues differently, depending on emotion, awareness, suffering, or connection? And if that's true, what exactly are we interacting with? Have you ever experienced something that didn't quite fit into one explanation? Something that felt real but didn't respond? Or something that carried an emotional atmosphere so heavy it felt like the place itself remembered something? I'd love to hear your story. You can send it in or share it with me over on socials. And if you're enjoying the show, please remember to subscribe and comment. It really helps push it out to others who may be interested. Next episode, we step into one of the most personal and philosophical conversations of the season, the possibility that consciousness may exist in layers and that some forms of awareness may still exist beside us long after death. Until next time, stay curious. Not every presence leaves a footprint in the same way. Bye.